Do you now imagine that most people are unaware of the supply chain and its complexities, or at least they were before COVID? Probably.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah,
it taught us a lot about how all the stuff that we take for granted actually gets to us, to the stores,
how does all this work?
Businesses. Yeah. But I think we've started paying attention and understanding a little bit more about how the supply chain works since then.
A little sensitive to that now.
Exactly. And while most of those kind of underlying issues have been resolved, from COVID at least.
For sure.
There's still, a lot going on in the supply chain.
Yes.
There's, shifting attitudes about how readily items should be shipped, restocked,
yes.
delivered. There's continuing, to find some flaws in the system that are out there. We've noticed some things that aren't, perfect and could still get better. And we've got also a lot of new ideas and new tools of automation that are impacting things. And this is no longer just a tier 1 problem at this point either. The SMB supply chain is also expected to keep up.
Yes.
Which presents opportunities for VARs as automation and AI solutions accelerate.
Yep.
So today on the show, we've got two of Zebra's industry principals. That's Wes Coleman. He's representing the warehouse side of things, and Jim Musco on the retail side to give their thoughts. What are supply chain conversations like now compared to just a year or two ago? What separates the laggards from the leaders? I think Wes has a really great thought about how laggards work, and that a laggard does not necessarily mean what you might think it means. That it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have an opportunity there. It just may mean that you don't have the scale of opportunity. You might say. Teaser for the episode.
Right.
Pay attention to that part. How is retail inventory impacted? What are some real world examples of solutions that you can go out and do now, or things you should be paying attention to? We got a lot of good stuff.
We do. These guys are incredibly knowledgeable too.
They are very much so.
Very insightful.
If you like the episodes where me and Dean do a lot less of the talking.
Yeah, this was one of them.
This is a perfect one for you because these guys have most of the insights.
That's right.
And we just kind of nod along there like, that's brilliant. Good idea.
Yep.
I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to BlueStar Nation. This episode of the BlueStar Nation podcast is brought to you by Zebra. In addition to the great advice and insights you're going to get from our guests today, Zebra's 18th annual global shopper survey, man, that's kind of a tongue twister.
Yes.
Will give you data points to make informed decisions for your business and understand challenges that your retail customers face. Get a closer look at the forces reshaping retail through the lens of shoppers, associates, and decision makers. Discover how intelligent operations, AI, real-time insight, and tech-enabled associates are delivering more personal, connected, and profitable experiences across the shopping journey. An example of some of the data you're going to see: 72% of shoppers want more personalized ads in stores.
Yes, I believe that.
We act like we sometimes don't like the personalization stuff.
Oh no.
But I think people, at the end of the day, people will actually say like, I'd like it if something was talking to me.
That's right. Yeah.
And 89% of associates believe that AI will make them more productive.
Yes,
that's
good.
Cool to hear
good.
too. That's what we're trying to do and trying to accomplish.
Doom and gloom. Yes.
Exactly. So visit the link in our show notes to see the shopper survey. It's a less than 10-minute read that is well worth your time. BlueStar Nation is also brought to you by Elo. The Elo iSeries 5 has arrived. The iSeries has been around for a while.
Yes.
We're on the fifth iteration now.
Yes.
iSeries delivers the modularity that businesses need in a sleek, durable, fixed tablet form factor, complete with a 15-inch Full HD touch display, a flexible Android 14 OS, and a powerful Qualcomm 6490 processor, Wi-Fi 6E, optional PoE, and 4 Edge Connect ports. The iSeries 5 provides the versatility to fit almost any application, including self-service kiosks, POS terminals, price checkers, KDS, and industrial automation. This is
basically whatever you need.
This is a display that can do it all.
All of it. Yeah. Doesn't matter to the industry.
What do you want to do?
Yep.
iSeries 5.
Got it.
Modular, that? Yep. iSeries 5. Available in 10, 15, and 22-inch sizes, the iSeries 5 easily configures to fit. Yeah, I can't talk right today. Feet to fit the needs of your business. Maybe if it's a foot business. Maybe you're a podiatrist or something.
There you go.
You need a display in the lobby or something.
It works.
iSeries 5 can probably do that too. Maybe not the use case we were looking for, but I don't see why you couldn't do it.
Why not?
From signage and point of sale to self-service automation controls and much more now, you can also get the thin and sleek slate and the durable steel models, making iSeries 5 the ideal touch computer for industries like retail, hospitality, industrial, and healthcare. That includes those podiatrists.
There you go. Yeah.
To learn more, check out the data sheets and select the best iSeries configuration for your next project. Check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Elo team. All right, we have two fantastic guests with us today to talk about all things supply chain and winning at supply chain.
One's not enough. We need two.
Exactly. We actually asked just for one. We were talking with Wes, and he said, hey, can I bring Jim on? Because he's going to have a lot to say about this stuff, too. I'm like, well, sure.
Well, sure.
The more the merrier. It's less than you and I have to do. And
no doubt about it.
Try to explain to people.
Especially.
So I'll start off our first guest today is Wes Coleman. He is the industry principal for warehouse at Zebra. Wes, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. Tell us a little about your background and your day-to-day at Zebra.
Will do. Hey, John, Dean, thanks for the invite. BlueStar, appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, so I'm the industry principal at Zebra Technologies for warehouse. So I'm that unicorn among zebras that I have no vertical, right? I cover them all. If the business has a warehouse, I can be helpful. So basically, industry principal, subject matter expert in the field. I spent 36 years in warehouse and distribution, running operational excellence teams. So really a good preparation for the role I have now with Zebra. Spend most of my time in customers' warehouses, helping them, understand what those opportunities are, and working with the Zebra Impact team and our partners to help that customer understand how they can improve.
Nice.
Got the background. I always appreciate someone that's been like, right. I'm not only in there talking about it now, but I also lived it and did it for a very long time as well. All right. Well, our second guest then is Jim Musco. He is the industry principal for retail at Zebra. Jim, same question for you. A little bit about your background and what your day-to-day is like.
Nice to meet you guys both. Wes, good to see you again. Appreciate the invite, and thanks to BlueStar for having us on. I'm the industry principal for retail in North America. Been in the retail environment for probably longer than I'm comfortable saying. I spent a lot of time in stores as a store operations manager and a store manager. I started out in the department store business, and then worked my way through store management and leadership into a technology role where I led store implementation and store technology for 25 years for a major department store business that hosts a large Thanksgiving Day parade every year.
Hang on, let me Google that.
Might be very close to us in Cincinnati, but anyway,
exactly.
Yes, all right.
Yes, spent a lot of time in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with that area. And I think I know where your studio is.
There you go.
There you go. Awesome. Well, great. Well, then I think we have two people who really get the ins and outs of supply chain, and, and specifically on the retail side, the warehousing side of things. So let's start off by talking about where we are right now, because there's been a lot happening over the last few years. Obviously the pandemic, created an entire shift in how supply chain works and exposed a lot of the flaws and issues with the supply chain. But then now we're also getting into this world where there's a lot more interest in automation. It's starting to ramp up in a lot of different, parts of the supply chain. And of course, AI, which we can't go an episode without talking about it in some way, is taking over too. So let's talk about those two conversations. Where they are within the supply chain right now compared to maybe just 1 or 2 years ago. And Jim, how about you kick us off here and talk about the AI side in particular? What's different about the AI conversation now than maybe it was just a couple of years back, maybe the pre-chat GPT days at the very beginning of that?
That's a great question. Hot off the heels of NRF, I think there's a new perspective that we're seeing across the industry. A couple years back, the C-suite or the board of directors had said, hey, do something with AI. And so people scrambled and tried to do just that. My big takeaway from what I saw at NRF just back in January is we're transitioning from an environment where I'm testing or learning or playing and trying to get a handle around what I could or should do into real world deployments of solutions on the front line for the frontline worker. So, you're starting to see the people have gotten their handle on their LLMs and their data and what condition they should be in. And now they're creating executables to put in the hands of the colleagues that really augment and provide solutions that drive efficiency, drive customer experience, and just overall improve that contribution that the frontline colleague is always looking to make. I think as we watch through 2026 into 2027 and beyond, you'll start to see more of this. There's still going to be people out there who are trying to get started and working through what to do next with AI. But I think you'll see a growing story on, hey, I can leverage this for a real world solution to help my colleagues.
Well, then let's talk the automation side here, Wes. What are you seeing there? What's changed about that conversation? Because I think that's one that, the automation part has been kind of part of the conversation for a while now. It's, not brand new necessarily. It doesn't feel quite as new as AI, but a lot of that's still changed as well. And a lot of what we're expecting there has changed. So what does that conversation look like now versus what it used to?
Yeah. So, specific, automation, many types of automation, specific to physical automation, I think businesses today are doing a much better job of digging in and doing their due diligence surrounding the actual cost and benefit of automation. Many businesses have tipped their toe in that really expensive automation opportunity that maybe the payback is 7, 8, 9 years. And they're actually deciding to pull back on that or to limit those implementations. I read an article just last week, Tractor Supply pulling back on physical automation to put more work in the hands of those workers on the front line. So I think businesses are smarter today, and they're you go to shows like Modex and ProMat, and you can become very educated at those shows if you spend the time doing having those conversations with the folks you need to understand. Really, the key is understanding the total cost of ownership of physical automation, and I think it's vitally important to understand the cost of maintenance and what the cost of downtime. Right, there's not an actual cost to that, but many businesses run picking 24/7 and just can't afford the downtime associated with that. So keep on getting educated is really the key to physical automation.
Yeah, I think as we look at kind of how things are transpiring, it's interesting the two blend itself. AI, automation, there's obviously, and I think Jim did a good job of kind of setting up it, because I agree with you, and you and I have been talking about this, where how the pivot's been around less experiment, less hype about, AI and pilots and stuff like that, but like what is scalable? What can we get an ROI on? What's going to have an operational impact, using AI tools and stuff like that. And you're starting to now see that manifest itself. And I agree with you, Jim, at NRF, it was very much about that as like practical uses of this now. And it's interesting to see, compare and contrast, because one of the things that I said, Wes, coming back from NRF, is I saw less automation, at NRF. Right. We talked about that in our overview show. And to your point, it's less about the hype and more about, well, what is this actually going to do? How is this automation actually going to impact workflows and things like that? So it's getting very tactile in the sense that, yeah, it's less about the blue or what's on the whiteboard, but now we got to start proving it, and we got to start having actionable things that work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Yeah, I do find it interesting, Wes, like you mentioned that, the automation piece, there's places that are kind of scaling back a little bit on that. Like maybe they were going full bore and decided, no, that's actually not quite what we want to do. We want to retool a bit. But I imagine then the shifting that over onto the AI conversation kind of gives you a way of still figuring out like, hey, what is things that we can do to improve our business and change how we're doing things and make us a little bit faster, smarter, better without necessarily having to lean into all the physical automation part of it, and still having workers that we're embracing and holding on to. And Wes, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I have to imagine that a part of that conversation is also the fact that the job market has become so tight in so many ways, and getting good labor is so difficult that you don't want to maybe put yourself in a position where you're trying to push labor out when you might end up needing them back again and find yourself in a pinch and not being able to have them. So is that kind of informing what's happening there on the automation side, and why maybe like AI is helping out to be a tool that can help, augment and assist those workers without necessarily trying to replace them with some other forms of physical automation?
Exactly. Yeah. So you went in a couple of different directions there. So I'll talk about labor first. Since during the pandemic and since the pandemic up to about a year ago, the challenge was really about finding labor. And over the past year, 16 months, that's shifted now. It's more about how can we do a better job of recruiting and retaining the right individuals. And that's an opportunity for workers seeking employment, and also an opportunity for businesses, coming together to find the right mix. And you're right, exactly. Three types of automation: decision automation, process automation, and physical automation. And we talked about physical automation, but decision and process also very important. How can you? You'll hear me say this throughout this session here, but how can you augment those frontline workers to give them the tools they need to be successful in their role?
So then let's talk about the difference between the laggards and the leaders. That's always, a hot topic, in our world. And, I'm sure as a VAR, you want to go out there and be finding the leaders and, and finding opportunities to work with people that are excited about this technology, yes, understand it. But the laggards have to be addressed as well, because at some point they're going to need it too. And maybe you can help them become a leader by getting in there. So especially thinking at this SMB level, what is dividing the laggards and the leaders? And are there things that are still happening just like the tier one that hasn't trickled down yet? Or is it starting to happen? Or are we starting to level that playing field a little bit? So, where are we now with the difference there, especially at that SMB level for where a lot of our VARs play?
So I was thinking about your commentary about how we've progressed and how we're getting solutions into the hands of frontline workers. And I think one of the things that's transpired over the last couple of years, from the onset of AI into what we're describing, what we see across the industries now, is people had a chance to get a handle on their data. So if you had disparate system of records that were working for your business in the past, but that data was not clean or condensed, what I think, at least what I see has happened, is people who are leaders in this space have figured that out and have started to address that. And they figured out how to condense that data and operationalize it so you can run it as a large language model and then execute. I think the laggards are that's in the space that they're at today, right? This is going very quick. This is one of those technology trends that is going to go fast. The curve is going to go like this, right? It's going to be a hockey stick. Old analogy, but that's what it looks like. And the laggards have not had an opportunity to get their data organized and set up. So I think from my seat, that's what I see across retail. Tier one's got the advantage there. Tier two and beyond, or smaller shops, they're not quite there yet.
Wes, anything you wanted to add on there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll tack on a little bit. So, when I hear the term laggards and what would you call it, laggards and leader, thinking conservative and progressive, right? Because the company that I had the good fortune of working for a very long time, we were super conservative, and it didn't mean we weren't diving into technology. In fact, we were very tip of the spear from a technology perspective. We just didn't put it in all 40 of our distribution centers all at once, right? We were conservative in our approach, and we were able to figure out, okay, this system costs X, the ROI is Y, and it'll fit in 25% of our facilities and do a good job there. The other thing I would say is there's a lot of opportunities for those companies that haven't tipped their toe in the water at all, right? I still talk to businesses that are still picking using a pen and paper, and really a wonderful opportunity for those true laggards to kind of launch forward into today's options of technology. Like literally, they were able to skip 25 years of technology and now look at just the best of the best and make a great decision. So sometimes there's an advantage, and I'll tell you, when I talk to those folks, oftentimes the answer they give when I ask, why haven't you embraced technology until now? The answer that they always give is, we have all these legacy workers that have been here like 30 years. And my response is always the same. They're leaving. You need to be planning for the future. So I think that's where a lot of those laggards are today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm going to go back to, I was reading an article that kind of shines a light on this as well. And I'll throw on the table the ability to get in front of the right audience or have the right audience manage the project. So what this article was making the argument that, when it comes to like AI, it was morally focused on AI, where that was really kind of, when you look at most organizations a few years back, that was an IT-led initiative, right? So some of the leaders were, but when you look at where the leaders are today, it's not just in IT, it's supply chains now involved. Right. You really have to get the stakeholders involved in this because it's a highly complex type of endeavor that you're going to be going down. Yeah, maybe IT owned the data and they were the ones that need to clean it up. But when you look at the workflow and the processes, you really need a more holistic view. And so supply chain professionals needed to get involved. And so those are who the leaders are. They're like, those are the guys that are getting involved. And the laggards are like, well, it's still stuck in IT. These projects are still stuck in IT and they're not looking at it more holistically across the organization. So, that, and I thought that was a really interesting take.
Yeah, I agree.
If I can jump in, you make a great point there, because having lived through the early envisionment and then deployment of RFID, it was a very similar path. It was like it was a tech project. Mm-hmm. No one understood the magic that RFID was providing. And so the technology teams deployed it, piloted it, kind of pushed it into the organization. When we've got a bite at Macy's and started to get traction with the business side of the house, it started in the supply chain. Mm-hmm. The supply chain team was the first one to grab on and see the value and the vision. And that made a much easier transition into store execution and store operations, because it was coming from a place of data, value add, inventory accuracy, and throughput. And that matters on the store side. And so you made a great point about where this is coming and where it's starting, because it truly is picking up traction on the supply chain, which just leads to benefits in the store. So great example.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Wes, I appreciated also your idea of the company you were with being considering themselves as conservative and yet still embracing technology, because I think it's a very relevant point that I think VARs and salespeople in general may sometimes forget about. Is you may have that customer that does feel like they're reticent and they're holding back, and that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're not interested. It just means they're like, hey, we're not going to be the ones that take this and roll it out. It's not going to be some giant win for you where you're selling 10,000 devices to us and this huge rollout or whatever. But maybe that's the kind of person you approach and say, hey, can we figure out a test somewhere? Let's talk about one of your locations that could benefit from this, that's either behind or maybe one you're just opening up new and wanting to get a fresh start. Where can we implement this technology and kind of give it a little bit of a test run? Where is there a safe space for that? And I think that's a great way to kind of approach that so-called laggard of, that seems like they're not necessarily interested or investing in this yet, but may actually be more ready. And you realize they just, aren't ready to just roll it out everywhere and take their chances. Like, we can't afford to have a huge failure. But let's start small and figure out what that is. And I think that could be a useful approach with that kind of customer, to go in and say, all right, I get it. You're not ready to do this full force yet. You're not ready to turn everything over. You're not the giant tier one, organizations of the world. Where can we start right now to just see what we can do with this and get some ROI and some proof of concept of what we can do here? Is that kind of what you're thinking there, Wes, with those kind of customers?
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell a short story here. Zebra actually has a customer with 45 distribution centers, and in each of those 45 distribution centers, they have a room, probably 1,000 square feet, where they put undeliverable packages, and it's high value products that these guys distribute. So they were required by their audit team to cycle count this room twice a day. Wow. And finding a package when they were ready to reship it took a huge amount of time. Well, that's a perfect example where Zebra solved for that by utilizing RFID just in that room. Right, they don't use it in their distribution center. They couldn't find a use case that made sense, but they did roll it out in those 45 rooms, those 45 distribution centers, and they're now able to cycle count, I think like 3 minutes, they can count the whole room versus 30 minutes before, and able to find a package very quickly. So it's a good example of solving an actual problem with the right technology.
That's a brilliant use case right there. Yeah,
yeah, no doubt. That's the
talk
exactly
about dipping your toe into an a new technology. Yeah, and
that's
applying
exactly the kind of conversations you should be having. It's not how am I going to change everything about your business, but how can I solve one problem that has been plaguing your business? And that's a perfect example there.
Yeah.
Jim, let's go down the retail side of things a little bit further here. So, thinking about all these supply chain trends we've been talking about and just the things that are impacting the business right now, the needs for data, for example, the need to ship, pick, pack, and ship faster than ever, and the demand that's out there for that. How's all that affecting retail inventory in particular? What's their impact on their goals, their challenges? What are they experiencing right now on the inventory side of things that all these trends are impacting? And maybe a little bit about what we're doing to solve some of those.
Yeah, great question. So a couple thoughts. The retail customer experience is always at the forefront. We live down in the weeds sometimes as technologists or as subject matter experts or as leading an industry vertical conversation in retail. But at the end of the day, it's about satisfying the customer and having the merchandise available right there as they expect it to deliver against that promise. And, we can save for another day the debate about is physical retail ever going to go away versus online sales or what have you. That'd be an interesting discussion at some point. But in this example, inventory accuracy matters. You go to the typical omni-channel experience, the customer shopping on their device or from a laptop or a tablet or what have you. And the retailer promises that item is available by saying, yes, you can add this to your cart. Click and pay, and then you collect the way you decide. You go to the store, you go to the curb, you have it sent to you. And the customer disappointment that comes from inventory inaccuracy is what's driving all of us to get to a level where I know what I have in the supply chain. I know where it is. I know when it's about to arrive in the store. I know when it's in the store. The store execution picks up, and that's where some of these AI augmented tasks for associates come in. I have to find it. And if it's in a cart in a stock room that was just delivered to the store and it's what I need, I have to be able to put my hands on that as an associate so I can deliver that to the customer to satisfy that experience. And so I think more than anything, the data, the visibility, and the accuracy is what drives us all as retailers to be able to deliver that experience for the customer. Because the last thing you want to do is leave them dissatisfied, because you really only have a couple chances and then they're not coming back. And so we can't afford to lose that loyalty or wallet share or whatever term you want to use. But, to me, it highlights this is about customer experience and satisfaction. And, inventory and visibility and accuracy, dare I say precision matters in 2026 and beyond.
Definitely.
That's a good take. Yeah.
Wes, anything to add there?
You're muted.
Yeah, Wes, couldn't hear you there for a second.
Sorry about that, guys. Jim's the expert, so I'll stay in my lane on this one.
Defer to him. Understood.
Hey, Jim, I got a question for you, because I agree with you on the customer experience, and that's king, right? Inventory accuracy absolutely has to be there. But a couple other topics keep bubbling to the surface whenever I talk about retail and stuff like that with folks, and that's return management and maybe loss prevention. So just getting your take on, let's start with return management, right? It's like this I don't know. It's a beast, and it's becoming a beast to a lot of reasons. Is AI going to help here? Is automation going to help? Is there anything that's going to save the day on return management, or what are you seeing there trend wise?
Yeah, that's a great question. Returns has always been an issue, and if you look at the numbers historically, it's really not that much different than it was years ago. We're talking anywhere between 17 and 25%, depending on the retail and the type of merchandise. That's what your return rate could be. Could be lower than that. Some instances, the return rate is only 5%. Sometimes it can be as high as a third. Somehow or another, we always managed to physically work through that at the store level, because you had expertise. You had a customer service desk or a returns desk. And that's where you went to do this. And the customer sort of cooperated in a lengthy experience. But, at times it could be frustrating. So now, fast forward to where we're at in the world today, I do want to leverage technology to execute that return, maybe even automate it, maybe even make it self-service. And I think, there's a couple things that come in from a technology play that can help that. RFID tagging, obviously, if you're capturing EPC data at point of sale or at point of fulfillment, you understand what that item is, and that will help with expedited return. Machine vision can probably help in this space as well. So there are some things I think you can do to help make the return better. I would also suggest, and we get into some deep dive discussions with retailers on this, conduct an ROI on your return process and really do an analysis of what am I benefiting from managing at a finite detailed level this item versus what does it cost me to manage this really highly detailed return process. Outside of authentication, why am I going through all these steps? And if they're legitimate business reasons and you have an ROI or a reason to do it, then you have a sense of why you're managing returns that way. I would suggest taking a look at that entire process end to end. Maybe there's some ways to take expense out of that and add to the customer experience and satisfaction equation without hurting yourself on the on the expense line or the P&L line, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense because, I often wonder, Amazon, for example, if there's a product that it's under $15, they just don't even want you to return it anymore. They have made that calculation, right, Jim?
They just keep
You just keep it. Yeah. It's not worth
keep it. Throw it away, whatever. We don't care.
Whatever process we have is not efficient enough to bring a return of a $15 item.
Which is nuts when a giant corporation like Amazon is even at that point where they're like, look, this is just not even worth our time.
Well, right. But I think that's a really fair statement that Jim's, and clearly that is the trend of what's happening is like, you got to make the business decision. Why are we burning all these calories and resources on a process that really we can't return the $15 item or whatever? But it's right around there. I figured, it's like, because I got like a Nerf gun that was like when we did the video shoot, and I tried to return it. It was like $18, and they're like, just keep it. And I'm like, okay, I just donated it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
what's the point?
Right.
Good stuff. I do appreciate that attitude about the returns management stuff. And I do appreciate where we are with the idea of satisfying the customer, because I do think sometimes that is something we forget at the end of the day. The retailers care about their customers, because if their customers aren't happy, then your retail business is going to go anywhere anyway. And it's a good thing that we're starting to figure out how to pull all these silos together in order to figure out what we're doing to help them. So then, Jim, let's go a little further down the road. And we had a great example earlier, and Wes was talking about the idea of the distribution centers with the returns room or whatever. So give us some other real world examples where some of these next gen solutions, whether it is automation, whether it's AI, RFID, whatever it is, where they're actually going out and winning, delivering the ROI, giving a concrete good example to folks about what they can do in their business, but also not feeding into the whole replacing the worker doom and gloom that everyone seems to have about the AI and automation conversation. What are some tangible examples you've seen that you think can really demonstrate the possibilities here?
So that's a great question. One immediately pops to mind, and it's a retailer that we had in our booth at NRF, and they've taken their data model and their product information, and they put it down into the hands of the colleague on a handheld. And what it's done, and if you talk to this retailer, if you saw them in our booth at NRF, you'll know who they are. They're a major wine and spirits seller across the country. They took our solution along with their homegrown, our AI solution along with their data and their application and put it in the hands of a colleague. And what that has done for them is it's turned that colleague from a stock chaser, someone who goes to find inventory because the customer is asking for it, and then, calling that done. Okay, yeah, I found it. Here you go. Thank you very much. And they've turned their colleagues from that, an inventory specialist, if you will, to an advisor, to a partner on help me understand a little bit more about this product. Oh, I may not have what you specifically asked for, but now I have a tool in front of me that can help you with alternate choices that are just as good or part of that discovery process of shopping. Hey, we don't have this, but I do have that. And the colleague has enough wherewithal with that data and their ability to sell, depending on how the retailer builds them up and trains them, to be able to be an advisor or be a product expert and help that. Again, it comes back to the customer experience, right? I can be super efficient in inventory and check all those boxes. But if I've got a crappy customer experience and I can't help you, then, the frontline colleague may appear not to add value. And in these instances, when you equip them with devices and solutions and information, now you got a value add that you can't walk away from. Invested in that experience for the customer and for the colleague, and they feel really good about being there, and they feel really knowledgeable and on board, and hey, I'm representing the brand. I have a lot of knowledge, and look at the big smile on that customer's face. So I think that's one example that comes to mind based on that question.
That's a good one, though.
Yep.
I like that. This is one of those times when, and mark this on your bingo card if that's what you do for this podcast. I'm going to reference my old retail days myself, which is I remember back in the day when I used to work in a bookstore and people coming in and asking for something, and you go to the computer, it says, yeah, you've got 2 of this. Good luck finding it. Hopefully it's where it's supposed to be, but it may not be, or maybe it's in that big shipment that's in the back room that hasn't been opened, but it got scanned in and added to the inventory already. And to your point, it's very empowering to a typical employee, whether you're someone that is passionate about the job you're doing or someone that's just like, hey, I'm just here to make some money on the side part-time or whatever. But there's something to be said for being able, when a customer walks in and says, hey, I need something, and you can go and find it for them or know exactly where you have it, if you have it, how quickly you can get it to them. I think sometimes we forget that little bit of minutia in the retail side, that it's sure at the bigger picture level, we want to make sure that we have all the inventory on hand so that the retailers want it so they can sell more. But if you're just someone just working in there, it's a good feeling to be able to go and get something that someone's asking for and put it in their hands and see them smile and say thank you and not disappoint them or make them angry because you told them, yeah, I've got 5 of that. And then you go looking for it and you have to come back, 10 minutes later and say, well, I've spent the last 10 minutes looking for those 5 and couldn't even find one. Sorry. There's very much something to be said for that.
Yeah, I have, you just prompted to mind an old memory from me. I early in my career, I was a sales manager for a department store chain in Tampa, Florida called Moss Brothers. And Frank Harvey was the president, and we were, it was one of those store visits. I had housewares and my coffee makers were stacked out just right and everything was perfect. And he's coming through and, you stood there in your department in your suit and you were all ready for whatever wisdom Frank was going to share. And he said one thing to me that has stuck with me through my entire retail career. And it was basically, Jimmy, the importance of this business is to make your merchandise look better than her money. And so that, to me, that's, the core of what this is all about. There's a lot of octopus tentacles that surround retail, but at the end, and we keep coming back to that experience portion in this discussion, which I find so telling about how we leverage technology to deliver against that promise for the customer. So I wanted to share that one.
That's a good one.
I hadn't even heard it in my head in a while, but thank you for bringing that good memory out.
I like it.
And I know
I've heard it a few times.
Make your product look better than their money. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, really.
Right.
And I know you brought up, a little bit earlier, Jim, because some of the concepts around, let's dive back into the workforce part of it. It's when you think about enabling the frontline worker, I'm going back to what you were talking about on the frontline worker, because I think a lot of that can be enabling. And back to your original question, John, around, the doom and gloom of replacement worker and how is AI going to do that? And there's just anxiety around it. But really at the end of the road, when you unlock the ability, which we've been talking about for the frontline worker, to do more of that customer engagement, or to put them in a place where they can make the product look better than the money that they have. And that's part of the deal, right? And so it shouldn't be fear over that. AI and things of that nature can bring task management and scheduling and communications and inventory visibility right in the hand of those associates on the floor to make that whole environment better. I mean, that's the goal, right? That's what we're all leaning towards. And that's why I think these real world examples of how do you enable them, those frontline workers, are great use cases, because it unlocks them to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that we talk about the AI conversation, especially when it comes to retail workers, and we think that as we start going down this path of the agentic AI, where there's this perception again, where I think people are thinking, well, if someone's walking into their device has an agentic AI on it, it's going to tell them exactly where to go and find whatever they need in the store, and they're never going to need to speak to somebody. So what's the point of the worker? But I hate to say it, but most people at the end of the day still are not going to want to trust just something on their phone more than an actual human being that they can potentially talk to. And the example there is, because it's not like, web reviews and ratings and whatever, or even like going on to like an Amazon or any other big box site and seeing stuff that'll tell you what a product's supposed to be and how it's supposed to compare. You can go to Consumer Reports or whatever it is. There's plenty of ways people have already had to go and get kind of data and facts and, being pointed in the direction of something. But at the end, people still like to go look through the reviews, for instance. They
absolutely do.
And read what someone actually said about something.
Yeah.
Or check out a video where someone was trying out a product and showing it off. I still think that human aspect of it, and sometimes the idea of having that person that maybe could help guide you and lead you to a particular product or explain to you why this product is better.
Absolutely.
That's still something I think most people are never going to completely just walk away from and be like, nope, I don't want a human being involved in this process at any point.
Yeah. And so, Jim, you brought up the argument, the debate of whether or not stores are going away. Is that what you said earlier on? Should we have that debate? I would like to throw my vote in that stores are not going away. My 13, 14-year-old daughter still absolutely loves walking into a store. There's just the whole, experience of discovery and they being able to put it in your hand and that online can't give you that.
Right.
So
maybe the store is no longer like just a big place where there's 15 of every single item and every single shade and color. It may be more of an experiential type thing. But I think at the end of the day, I think people are still going to enjoy going out and shopping.
You guys are spot on. I mean, customers, they want to touch it, they want to feel it, they want to smell it, they want to taste it. And, you part of that experience is those senses. And so, you can be efficient, and there's a lot of things that you can do because we now have the benefit of buy online and ship to home, buy online. And, I'm going by there later today anyway. I'll just pull up to the curb and pick it up. And you can do that for a good portion of what you buy day in and day out, but you still want, that experience, right? We were joking about, Wes sits on the bench. I go inside the store. I follow my wife and daughters into these stores simply not just a stop spend, but unreasonable spend. But I watch what goes on. That's part of my job is observe customer experience. And it matters. To be able to pick it up and touch it and feel it is always going to be part of it. And I think it's just, we're as retailers and as technology providers in this realm, I think we finally landed on, this isn't really a debate. Now it's how do we help sustain this and keep stores in play and keep that experience, to your point.
Yep.
Top of mind for retail and the supply chain that feeds it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. All right. Well, in a moment, we're going to have Wes and Jim kind of help us wrap up here a little bit and explain a little bit about how Zebra is going to help you go out there and solve some of these problems.
All right.
Before we do that, quick note of what's happening around BlueStar Nation. Hey, our 2U tour for 2026 is kicking off next week.
Oh, wow.
In Tampa.
That's soon already?
On the yacht Starship. Yes. Next
Can I go?
Tuesday. At least as the day this is coming out. So.
Can I go? Because it's warmer down there than it is. Oh.
No, but I'll let you know. I'm going to this one. So.
Oh, that's right. You are.
I'll let you know how it went.
Okay. I appreciate that.
I'll send some pictures of sunshine and warm weather your way.
I appreciate that.
You were just in Rome.
Yeah,
I'm
know,
sure
right?
you probably, having a better experience than I did.
It was rainy.
Tampa, so I'm sorry. Well,
okay, whatever.
Still, it was Rome. All right.
There you
go. So limited seats remain for that event in Tampa, but the tour is coming to many more cities across the U.S. and Canada this year. As always, the 2U tour brings together a tech expo, some expert speakers, inspired networking, and we do it in cool venues too. It's just neat places to visit. So if you are near any of our cities, I highly recommend that you come and check out one of these shows as a reseller. It's a great way to get hands on some technology, meet some potential new colleagues, and just learn what's happening out there right now. After Tampa, here's what we have planned for this year. We have Phoenix in March, Austin and Toronto in April, Boston and Montreal in June, and then later this fall, we've got Chicago, New York City, and Vancouver coming up. Bookmark the link that's in our show notes to keep up with future dates. Make sure you're following BlueStar on LinkedIn as also. We're always putting out info there when one comes open to register. So get yourself to one of these events. They're really cool. I think you'll be excited if there's one in your region to go attend one of these. So that's the BlueStar 2U tour coming to a city near you. Hey, while you're doing that, you're busy looking up, where we're going to be and figuring out your logistics of what show you want to go to. Take a moment also, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button for this video. Drop us a comment if you have some thoughts on some of the topics we've discussed today. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure you're following or subscribing to us on any podcast platform you might be on. Leave us a review. If there's an option, especially if you're an Apple podcast, it is a great way to help amplify our show, get more people to notice it and pay attention to it. Leave a quick, 5-star rating and review. We'd love to hear from you. If you get some of those, I'd love to talk about them on the show from time to time. So please get that out there. Of course, check out our BlueStar Nation blog. We're doing great stuff over there all the time. And submit your ideas to us here on the show, things you want us to talk about. If you want me to drag, Wes and Jim back on to dive a little bit deeper into a topic, I'm happy to do so. I'm sure they'd be happy to jump into. Don't hesitate to let us know what you want to hear about. You can find us on that LinkedIn page, obviously, or you can email us directly, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, let's wrap things up. Let's do a little value to the VAR here.
Yeah.
And, guys, I wanted you to kind of share a little bit about, Zebra's perspective on all of this and how you're going to go out and help folks, especially VARs that are working with those SMB retail and warehouse customers. And when I was doing a little bit of research about this topic, and thinking about some ideas of what we could talk about, I came across the term Frankenstack, which I had never heard before, but it makes complete sense, which is the idea of a company having a tech stack where they are grabbing things like, well, I know I need to do RFID and I know I need to do AI and I need some kind of automation and I need to do some machine vision. Yeah, some inventory management, some machine vision, but they're not necessarily looking very well at how those things actually work together and incorporate together. So it becomes a stack that is like a Frankenstack that's just kind of pieced together from a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
So from your perspective, Wes, I'll let you kick this off here. How does Zebra help folks go out and, when you think about partnerships and integrations and, bringing the pieces that need to come together to deliver a tech stack that isn't going to just be a muddy mess that frustrates those end users, how are you helping enterprises go out and avoid that situation?
Yeah, I think, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but briefly. So, I think that the secret sauce that Zebra has is this partner network, right? To come together with the Zebras, the partners, the software solutions, and the customer really start at the challenge, right? Well, what is the challenge? How do we need to solve that challenge? And understanding what we have to build on, right? Is it an SAP platform? Is it Oracle, NetSuite? What are we building from? That's really the magic is having all of these folks like Jim and I are involved as well as the account managers and the solutions engineers to understand the best solution for those customers and working together to come up with that solution. It's not we're working on our side of the wall and then we'll come back to you. It's better together situation.
Jim, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I love what Wes just said, because from our seats, we have an opportunity to look holistically across the problems and the issues that the retailers are trying to solve for. And so what we have available to us is exactly what Wes described. We can look across the great partner network that we have. I spend a good bit of time in the ISV conversation trying to understand what are the solutions that we have versus what we might have inside the four walls of Zebra. Marrying that up with the solutions and the widgets, right, the devices that Zebra is known for, and how all that fits together. And, when I see our roadmap for devices and products married up and aligned to what retailers are trying to solve for, or what Wes is looking for in the warehouse space and the supply chain side, I feel pretty good about what Zebra and our partners are doing to try and help in this space. I think from a trend line, we touched on RFID and AI. I think you'll continue to see that technology fuse together with machine vision. And I think over the next few years, we'll start to see real implementations in that space outside of, maybe a grocery example that all immediately comes to mind when you think about machine vision. But wearables is, I think, another thing, a trend line that you'll see coming out of us as Zebra works toward providing more in that space. And then short range inside a meter RFID reading in the hands of, anybody who has a mobile device. So, that's what I see coming. It gets me up in the morning, has that first cup of coffee, and excited to come and do and talk and do these types of things. So, that's the exciting stuff in my day. I love it.
And maybe solving some of that Frankenstack. Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I mean,
I like that term. I had never heard it either, but it really efficiently describes what most technology shops what they face.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're not asking the right questions, if you're not, it's all part of that consultative sales approach too. I think it is easy to become part of the Frankenstack problem. I think it's easy just to give a piece that just becomes an additional layer of problems for your customers. But if you want to avoid that and help them avoid that and give them a bad taste of all of it to put together, it's having those conversations. It's stopping things, maybe to Wes's point, and just asking like, hey, let's talk about your ERP. Let's talk about your WMS. What is that like? What problems are you having with it? What are you currently using, that's connected to that, and figuring out how that works together? Because if you're not asking how the other stuff works or what the other stuff is that your solution might be connected to, there's a good chance your solution is going to look pretty bad. Even if you've given the best possible thing for that challenge, they roll it out and it doesn't integrate with anything else. Well, then it's just another part of the problem.
It's rare that anything's on an island like that.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's wrap up as always with what's on our radar. That's the fun part of the show where we get to talk about something in the world of tech, science, business, innovation, entertainment, whatever
or otherwise
chatting about today that's on our mind. Jim, kick us off here. What's on your radar right now?
So, you heard me use the term fusion earlier related to RFID, AI, and machine vision. And to me, that I think is what I'm going to watch evolve over 2026 into 2027. I think we're going to see more of that trend as you put those three pieces of technology together, really data sensor collection is what that's all about. Put that all together into a supply chain hands or into a retailer's hands, and you have a holistic story about the condition and availability of your inventory. And I used the word precision earlier. I think that's the next step in inventory accuracy, is to get beyond, 95, 96, 98%, even get beyond Six Sigma to, 100% accuracy. So, that's a trend for me. That's what I'm going to watch for. I think it'll be exciting. Look it up, do some research on your own if you get a chance, for any of our viewers out there, and see where it's going to take us.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
Wes, what about you? What's on your radar?
So I had something else queued up to talk about, but I'm gonna shift gears and do this instead. So I think the topic here is be careful that you don't turn the tip of the spear on yourself.
Right? Yeah, right.
So I picked up new glasses last night, and I went with the new Meta glasses.
Oh.
And, so I don't know how to work them yet, but they do also, other than being cool from a tech perspective, they also help me see.
Nice, that helps.
But somehow they actually muted me earlier in the podcast, which I don't know if you picked up on that or not, a couple of times. So it took me a minute to kind of figure that out. So I think that's the takeaway for me is I'm very trendy when it comes to technology. I've got all the latest tech and I love it. But maybe I should do a little more testing before I go live on a podcast with it.
Yeah, right.
I guess there's worse things that could have happened.
Yeah, I haven't tried those on yet, but Cordy has some of those.
I know he's got them. Yeah,
he loves it.
Yeah.
He walks around with them all the time. Yeah. I don't know what he's doing with them, but I've always got one eye of suspicion on that guy. He's gonna,
got to be a little cautious about everything you say in front of him now. Like,
yeah,
what is exactly happening here?
Yep. Yeah.
All right, D, what's on your radar this week?
We're all watching the Olympics, right?
Yes, I admit I've
gentlemen,
been curling in particular. That's my favorite.
What I am super impressed with this year is the use of drones.
Yes.
They are mind-boggling. So before you go there, right? Like you first get involved. When I first started watching them this year, I'm like, oh, because you see it on the Super G. That was like one of the first. And this is where they're skiing downhill, 80 miles an hour, just right. And the drone operators are right there at the top of the hill behind them. And so then it's the freestyle. You got the drone there. But the most impressive one, I'm with you, is like the bobsledding.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're flying these little things down the tube with these guys. It's like they clearly are not getting paid enough. Whatever, because I haven't seen them mess up yet. Can you imagine being a drone driver and like running into a bobsledder and getting them off their game?
I have to think there's some amount of automation to that.
Like, I don't know. It's
especially like if it's a track.
Oh, it's not a pilot. Oh, okay.
I'm sure there's someone troubleshooting potentially.
I don't know.
Or like
we need to find out.
Maybe changing camera angles and stuff or whatever. But I would have to think there's some kind of tethering going on.
You're probably right.
That's keeping them connected.
Here's the skier, now just follow this dude.
Right.
And stay whatever.
Or especially like for like bobsledding the luge where it's a defined track. That might be very easily be like
Wes, what do you think? Are these drones automated already? Is that what's happening? Because they're pretty cool.
So it's so funny you mentioned that. My granddaughter was over this weekend and we were watching the mogul racing. Mm-hmm. And you're right that those drones are right on. I mean, I gotta believe there's a certain amount of distraction.
Right? Yes, they are loud.
Because they are kind of loud, yeah.
But yeah, I firmly believe there's got to be some kind of follow me tech going on there, and it's not. It's I bet you it's 90% automated.
Yeah, probably is. Okay. Yeah. So that's going to mitigate with my worst case scenario. Like, I can just imagine some dude flying it right into the skier, like who has worked their entire life to get to this moment. And
I would feel fairly confident that is the kind of thing they would have made sure up front is not a possibility. Because to your point, what if someone's on like a world record run?
Exactly. Yeah.
And suddenly they get derailed because a drone flies in their face or gets in their line of sight.
And
they can never replicate that again. Like how much of a catastrophe in a scandal would that be? Yeah.
But still, kudos to them. I think it is really being well used during the Olympics right now. So anyway, that's what's on my radar. What's on yours?
Well, a somewhat related note on the drone side of things. I can't came across an interesting article about what I assume is an MIT student. There's not a lot of detail in this article other than just a cool video showing it. But this guy created a drone umbrella that follows him around in the rain.
That's pretty cool.
So it is just what it seems like. It is a big yellow umbrella that has a bunch of little drones kind of underneath it.
I like it.
Somewhat impractical because this is a very big, massive device kind of thing. But he's figured out a way to have it tethered to him and use like sensors and and visual data to kind of follow him around. Now, watching the video, you could tell if he moves a little too erratically or a little too fast, it has a hard time kind of keeping directly above him. But if he's moving at a fairly steady pace in a single direction, not shifting too often or whatever, it does a pretty good job at keeping up with him. This is one of those things I could see becoming a legitimate, thing in the future. Maybe finding a little bit more of a practical, lightweight, easy to deploy use case for it. But it's just cool. Check out the link in the show notes. So just watch the video.
It seems like it's practical if I'm walking from the retail store in my parking lot to my car, right? A nice open area, a nice little walk, as opposed to walking the streets of New York City, where I'm now competing with other umbrellas and everything's like, it's probably not a good use.
I agree. That
case,
probably would be more problematic at that point.
Think about how to get this in my golf bag.
Ooh, there you go, Jim. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because I live on a golf course, and you'll see the golf bags that are tethered, Bluetooth, and they're electric, and they just walk along with you. I love this.
Add an umbrella to that, and you've got it figured out.
Boom. Click a button right there. Now your little umbrella's above you. Brilliant use case.
You often see a lot of brand new technology either getting deployed first in the military or often in sports. I would not be surprised if a PGA Tour stop somewhere in the near future has a drone umbrella following folks around for that light rain before they call it off.
I like it. Yeah. Let's start a company tomorrow.
You heard it here first.
There you go. You heard it here first. That's right.
As always, one of our $1 billion ideas we're just throwing out there.
Throwing it out there.
And waiting for someone else to make all the money off of it, apparently. So, all right. That is what's on our radar this week. Wes Coleman, Jim Musco, thank you guys so much for being on the pod.
Thanks, gentlemen.
We appreciate having you on. We do need to sign off for the week. But before we do so, just remember, folks, Frankenstein was the creator, not the monster.
That's true.
Don't take the pitchforks and the torches to the technology. Go after the people that aren't doing the job of going out there and explaining, how your business can run a little more efficiently with integration.
There you go.
There's my tip for you based on some historical novel knowledge there. All right, folks, we will see you out there in the nation.